Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new RunCam Micro Swift version 3. So if we just real quick open it up and take a look. Here we have the camera, and then of course you just have your bag with the breakout cables and screws, etc. All that stuff that's usually included. But real quick, if we take a look at the camera, this is the Micro Swift. However, you can probably tell it's not that micro. If you look at the boards here, they're actually using the same exact circuit board. Everything there is the same. However, the casing and the lens, this used a little M8 lens, these tiny little micro lenses. This was the Micro Swift V2 or V1 here. And then this new style of the version 3 uses a full-size M12 lens there. So you can see, pretty much other than the lens, they are the same exact camera. And the thinking behind this is to get a bigger lens, to get a bigger sensor, to let more light in, to give you a nicer picture. And some people argue that it does give you a nicer picture, but whether it actually does will be pretty much up to whoever's looking at it. Another thing that they changed from the version 2 here, if we take a look at the old one, you have ground and OSD, which is where you'd plug that little dongle in to switch your settings. However, now if we take a look at the new one, we have TX and RX. So this guy has camera control built in on the board here. So you actually hook this up to a spare UART on your flight controller, so you can change the settings without having to use the little dongle or have to buy a separate adapter like the ones they have available. Now this is a good and bad thing. This will make it really easy to set up your camera settings. However, if you don't want to mess with that, or if you don't have a spare UART on your flight controller, then you're not able to access the settings, so that could be a real headache. So it's pretty much either way, a pro or con, but I honestly don't see too much advantage in camera control, as I never change my camera settings anyways. For races, I pretty much just go with what they are. So once again, you'll have to decide if that's a good or bad thing for you. So real quick, let's just get a weight on the camera here. So if we weigh the old Micro V2, we have 5.88 grams, and if we weigh the new one with the large lens, you have 10.9 grams, so it is 5 grams heavier. So it was just a real quick intro on the Micro Swift V3. Let's take it out and get some flight footage. Okay, so real quick, let me just show you how I have the camera hooked up before we get some flight footage. So for the video 5-volt and ground, I just hooked that up to the Unify, so it's just straight connected to there. So the Unify will feed 5 volts into this. The blue wire is your VBAT plus. You really don't need to run this if you have an OSD on board your flight controller, but I just tacked that on top of the positive battery lead there, so that gets VBAT, so your camera has the correct voltage for the OSD. And for the camera control, you have your TX and RX, your brown and green wire. So the green wire coming from the camera is the RX, so I put it to TX on the flight controller. Just here I have an RX and TX, I just use a UART 3. And to enable it in the beta flight, you just go to your ports tab and enable RunCam device on UART 3, and everything should work from there, and then your stick controls emulate the OSD joystick. So let's see what kind of image it has. Okay, here we are just starting off with the RunCam Micro Swift 3 for some test footage. This is 100% stock settings. I have not messed with any of those at all. You can see the sun is pretty low and very bright right now. Just keep in mind that's why the camera looks a little bit warm all around, but hopefully you can tell it definitely does look like a general CCD image, pretty much identical to the Micro Swift 2 or any other CCD camera like the Micro Aero, since it is exactly the same and now just has the larger lens. Looking at the sun, hopefully you can see it's pretty blown out there, but we're still keeping decent detail in the trees. I'm just looking up there so you can get a general view of what it looks like. Overall, definitely not a bad image, and when I was flying it in the goggles, obviously the DVR is not going to show it as well. You lose a lot of quality. You lose quality rendering it, then you lose quality uploading it to YouTube. And I'm not sure if it was due to the larger lens and the larger sensor or not, but it did look just a little bit sharper and a little bit more clear than, say, the normal Micro Swift did. I'm not sure if I'm just making that up because I think it should be more clear, if I was actually noticing that it was more clear. But it definitely did look pretty good in the goggles, better than it does here in the DVR in terms of like the clarity and such. But obviously I'm just sort of flying around here. The field of view is very good. It's 2.1mm 4.3 field of view, so the vertical is pretty nice, so it'd be just fine for racing with a little bit of faster flying here. And I do have the tilt pretty low at maybe like 40 degrees camera tilt, so that's why I'm not able to go super fast, but you could definitely tilt more to get more out of it. And the trees there, it's doing pretty well with the shadows and everything. So yeah, it's just the same exact image as a regular Micro Swift CCD, so we'll leave it at that. Alright, so here we are back inside to finish up on the review for the Micro Swift 3. As I showed you earlier, I did hook up the camera control to the Hyperlight F4 here. However, this is running Betaflight 3.1.7, and I believe the camera control feature is not available until 3.2 or later. So I wasn't able to actually enable that, as I didn't want to update and lose all my settings. Turns out I just have this build set up how I want it, and I didn't feel like updating it. But if you do have that box checked, basically your sticks are now going to replace this little joystick thing to control the camera. So you need to access the menu, you put your throttle into the center, and then you yaw to the right. And that should enter the menu, and then your right stick will just, you know, be the same thing as this joystick. So if you press down, it'll be like a down click, so you can just navigate the menus the same way. Then you can obviously go through the user presets like the light tracks, the sunny, cloudy versions, the preset settings just by pressing and holding to the right, just like you would on the little OSD controller here. So in terms of the image quality compared to the Micro Swift 2, it's pretty much identically the same image when I was looking through it there. It's exactly what you'd expect from a CCD camera, since it is the same exact internal, same exact board, it just now uses a larger lens. And now in terms of whether the quality was any better or not, I felt like in the goggles it was a little bit more clear with a little bit better shadow detail than the Micro Swift 2, but that could all be in my head. I'm not really sure. You'd have to really fine pick side by side, but I'd say that they're close enough that it's not a huge difference, but I think there was a little bit of difference. But obviously one of the main, or probably the only main drawback of this guy is just the size. It sticks out so much more than the original Micro. With the Micro Swift 2 in this frame, it didn't stick out at all, and I've only ever broken one camera, and that just completely obliterated the quad when I crashed that. But you can see this guy sticks out way up front, and if you hit something, this is pretty much going to be the first thing that it hits, so you're probably going to be breaking a lot more cameras with this larger size. So I'd say for racing, probably it's definitely not worth it. You just stick with a micro camera. You don't need that tiny little bit of extra image detail. But if you have a larger freestyle frame that's more accommodating in terms of space, or maybe if you have a plane like a wing, where you want a little bit finer image, I feel like that might be an ideal place for these. But for racing, I'd still rather just use a little micro camera. So yeah, that's going to bring us to the end of the video here. There'll be a link down in the description below to the camera if you're interested. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.